You might think you know Lex Luthor, but here are 12 facts you may not know about Superman's greatest enemy. The evil scientist known as Luthor first appeared in 1940's Action Comics number 23. He does not receive the first name Lex, however, until his origin is revealed 20 years later in 1960's Adventure Comics number 271. Before that, he is simply called Luthor. In his earliest appearances, Luthor does not have his trademarked bald head, but instead has a full head of red hair. However, Leo Nowick, the artist of the Superman newspaper strip, confused Luthor either with his own bald henchman or Superman's earlier foe, the Ultra Humanite, and drew him as bald. It stuck, and he's had a shiny pate ever since. In story, the origin of Luthor's baldness is given in the same issue Luthor first gets a first name. It turns out Luthor and Superboy knew each other as teens and were friends until a fire breaks out in Teen Luthor's lab, and as Superboy puts it out, he inadvertently causes a chemical spill that makes Luthor bald for life. Luthor hated him from that day forward. In 1963, Luthor challenged Superman to a fair fight without powers, so Superman flew him to a planet with a red sun where he would be a normal human. Luthor would go on to use science to save this planet's civilization, and they would revere him as a hero and rename the planet Lexor in his honor. He marries a native woman of this planet named Ardora, and they have a son, Lex Luthor Jr. Luthor's family disowned him shortly after he began his career as a criminal, going so far as to change their last name to Thorl, an anagram of Luthor. He had a younger sister named Lena, who believed that her brother had died in a mountain climbing accident. Lena also had psychic abilities that she gained from touching a space brain. Luthor also had a niece, Nostalthia Luthor, better known as Nasty, who was an enemy of Supergirl. She was apparently the daughter of a different, never-seen Luthor sister. Rounding out the Luthor family, there was also Destructo, a super-powered dog that was the rival of Krypto, the Superdog. It was following 1986's universe-wide reboot Crisis on Infinite Earths that Luthor changed from an evil scientist to an evil billionaire who was also a scientist. This version of Luthor got cancer from kryptonite poisoning and transferred his mind into a cloned body with an Australian accent and a flowing red mullet, pretending to be his own son. Within the DC universe, Lex Luthor successfully ran for president in the year 2000, following his well-regarded efforts in rebuilding Gotham City following an earthquake. His vice president was Superboy's old pal Pete Ross, his secretary of defense was Lois Lane's dad, and his secretary of education was Black Lightning. In 2005, Forbes magazine named Lex Luthor the fourth richest fictional character, trailing Santa Claus, Daddy Warbucks, and Richie Rich, but ahead of Mr. Burns. In the years since, he's been knocked off the list by the likes of Tony Stark, Scrooge McDuck, and Twilight's dad. One much-memed drawing of Lex Luthor stealing 40 cakes comes from 1978's The Super Dictionary, an illustrated vocabulary book for children. This story, however, became canon in 2011, when Superman number 709 revealed that a young Luthor stole 40 cakes from the school's bake sale. During the Blackest Night event, in which the dead were rising as superpowered zombies fueled by the emotion of death, Luthor was able to protect himself from all the people he had killed over the years when he received a superpowered Orange Lantern ring, which is powered by greed. Despite being one of the Earth's most notorious villains, in current continuity, Lex Luthor is a member of the Justice League after gaining a reputation for being a hero due to defeating an invasion by an evil version of the Justice League from another Earth. That's it for this episode of You Think You Know Comics. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Comics Alliance for more comic facts, and check out comicsalliance.com for more comic awesomeness.